Well, good afternoon and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are starting this e-session, this session online, and we are going to talk today about innovation in the concentrated solar power industry. And in particular, we are looking to push the boundaries of cost reduction. As you know, reducing costs really is the only way to keep competitive. And in a world where, competitiveness is being pushed further and further by renewable energy, then, this is the only job that we have to do right now. I'd like to, before we get started, welcome some of the guys that are there in the audience that are all friends of the industry. We've got Fred Moores online, we've got Luis Crespo online, we've got, let me see, Partif, JS online. So welcome everyone, there is many more. I see a lot of well-known names. So I'd just like to say thank you for supporting all these years, for being there. And it's always good to see, that we are such good company. And the good news, super experts that most of you will know. And I'd like to welcome them today and just allow them to present themselves. So Michael, please, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. My name's Michael Taylor. I lead the work that we do at the International Renewable Energy Agency on the costs and performance of renewable energy technologies and fuels, and of course power generation and CSP is a big part of that. So it's a pleasure to be with you today and share some insights from our work.
Thank you very much, Michael. And today you're in Bonn, correct?
I am indeed, in a very overcast Bonn today.
Excellent, so no CSP for Bonn. Cristina, could you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Cristina Prieto. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Okay, I am the head of innovation department in Abengoa Energia. It's wrong in the presentation in the first slide. Sorry. I work in Abengoa since 2006, so I have an accumulated experience, 15 years working and developing CSP technology.
And that means everywhere, right? Everywhere, from South Africa to Spain. Excellent. And you're based in Seville. I'm based in Madrid as well. You guys, thank you for sharing where you're based. I see people from Colombia, from Mexico, from Germany, from Sweden, from South Africa, from Spain, from London, lots and lots of places, which is great to see. Colorado, of course, the US, from Egypt. So welcome everyone. Let's talk about innovating in CSP. The first person to speak is actually going to be Michael, and I'm going to invite Michael to put his presentation up. And whilst he does, I'd just like to remind you that we are going to take questions after both Michael and Cristina are done with their presentations. So please send your questions through the Q&A box, and we will as much as possible, reply at least some of them at the very end. And any other considerations, chats, feedback, whatever, you can send it through the chat. If you have anything from us, anything that you need from us, let us know. And just to remind you that this webinar is sponsored by SQM, which is a provider of thermal solar salts. Is the natural solution for thermal storage and heat transfer in your CSP plant. You all know it, but I just wanted to remind you. All right, Michael, go ahead. Make sure you,
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Berlin. So I assume that you can all see my slides. Yes, Berlin.
Yes, we can, yes.
Very good, thank you. So what I want to do today is take you through very quickly some of the work we released earlier this year, looking at the recent trends in the costs of renewable power generation costs, before discussing some of the preliminary results, which are not finalized yet, but we're doing some work looking at cost reduction potential for solar and wind technologies for each of the G20 countries. And we've done some really interesting work I hope to share with you today in partnership with DLR here in Germany, looking at the potential cost reduction and the utilization of CSP in the G20 countries. So that's what I want to cover today. It's a pretty broad brush, high-level overview, given the time we have available, but obviously there's going to be opportunities for hopefully some questions and dive a little deeper later on. So In terms of the recent cost evolution, in May this year, we released our update of renewable power generation costs. So this is a series of reports now that we've been doing since 2012, basically trying to ensure that we have a fact-based discussion we can have about the contribution of renewable power generation technologies in the energy transition, rather than speculation around costs. So what we want to achieve is really transparency in costs and improve decision-making as a result, and also help policymakers, because we're working for our member states. The International Renewable Energy Agency is an intergovernmental organisation. We have over 160 member states, so we're going very close to universal membership. And our goal is really simple. It's to accelerate the deployment of the sustainable deployment of all renewable energy technologies. So this publication tracks the results up till 2018. We look at the underlying cost drivers. So what's driving the high level results? So we have to look further down into the equipment costs and so on. In recent years, we've also been integrating some of the information that's coming out of the auction and tender results, which are increasingly dominating renewable energy procurement. So it's a bit of a nightmare digging through the data because of the different basis which it's analysed, but you can read about those issues in the report. But it does tell us some interesting things, and I want to talk a little bit about that. And of course, after that, we can talk about where we're going next, what's happening in the CSP market. So here on the left-hand side, you have a chart of the levelized cost of electricity for the renewable power generation technologies. On the y-axis, you have the levelized cost of electricity. Each dot represents on this chart represents a project that was commissioned in either 2010 or 2018. The diameter of that circle is the relative size of that project in megawatts, to give you an idea of the scale. The center of the dot on the y-axis tells you the levelized cost of electricity. Now, we do assume a rather conservative cost of capital, a weighted average cost of capital of 7.5% and 10%. That was probably appropriate in 2010. It's a little less so today, particularly in the OECD countries, given the low interest rate environment. So we're doing some work also to try and improve our understanding of cost of capital. But that's for a webinar for another day. You can see on the left-hand side, bioenergy, geothermal and hydro, the mature technologies. Don't forget about those. They offer competitive, dispatchable electricity in many cases where there are economic resources that have yet to be exploited. Solar PV in the middle there, dramatic cost reduction. What we're talking about today is next to that in the reddish orange there is concentrating solar power. Now, we've seen a significant cost reduction, and similarly for offshore wind. These are two of the least deployed of the new renewable technologies, and consequently, as we'll see, with some of the largest cost reduction opportunities. We'll dive down into that shortly. But what we see here is that for wind and solar, clear cost reductions and falling into this zone of competitive with existing, with new fossil fuel fired power generation, which costs between 5 and 17.5 cents per US kilowatt hour depending on where you are in the world. So the cost reductions have actually been quite impressive in recent years, actually. So we were just looking at 2010 to 2018. What happened just year on year in 2018 is quite impressive. Solar PV declined 13%. This is the levelized cost of electricity. Concentrating solar power actually declined by 26%. Part of that I'll talk about in a minute. There's some of the reasons for that. Offshore wind, it's a very thin market like CSP, so it's quite volatile, bounces around a little bit. The global weighted average is only 1%, and onshore wind 13% curiously as well. 2010 to 2018, of course, the cost reductions are very significant. So these kind of cost reductions are actually kind of something exceptional in our modern economy. If you want to talk about cost deflation, the only thing basically manufactured in the world that comes even close is kind of computers or electronic devices. So these are really quite remarkable numbers, and the impact that it's going to have going forward in terms of low cost, renewable, sustainable electricity is quite dramatic and important. Obviously, there's work still to be done, and we'll talk about that in a minute. In terms of the trends for CSP, costs and performance, unfortunately, as probably most of you are aware, the market is relatively thin. So there's significant volatility in the weighted average values that we have year on year, but there's a clear downward trend. And this chart tries to bring together the very high level drivers. So you have from left to right on this chart, the trend in total install cost, in the middle, the capacity factor, and finally on the right-hand side, the levelized cost of electricity. So we can see through time, total install costs have been quite volatile on average, but have come down. The grey bands are the 5th and 95th percentiles. So you can see that there is quite a wide range through time. And similarly, on average, we've seen a growth in the capacity factor. This has been driven by two major components. One is the very welcome trend to the deployment of CSP in areas with higher solar resources, where they make a lot of economic sense, but also the technology development, the shift on average to higher levels of thermal energy storage, longer duration thermal energy storage, which are raising capacity factors. And all of this, of course, combines to drive down the levelized cost of electricity, as we've seen. I won't repeat those percentage reductions. Of course, what's interesting is that the auction results come in quite a bit below this. Now, these are obviously for results that are coming for future delivery and commissioning, but you can see a little bit, just a little bit, how things are changing. And I think it's useful at this point to show you just how dramatic this cost reduction potential in the near term already signaled from auction and tender results are. So here we're overlaying two databases we have. In blue, we have the levelized cost of electricity database, which includes 17,000 projects more or less now, around half of all capacity deployed at the end of 2018, and that's in blue. Then we have the auction and PPA database, which is in orange. And this is our little crystal ball into the near future, because we have some projects obviously in there for future commissioning. And if we look on the far right-hand side for concentrating solar power, you can see here that in blue, the trend that we've already shown, slightly crunched there, so more dramatic looking, and we see what's coming from the PPA and tender results. And you can see there this very steep reduction. And so for offshore wind and CSP, what we're seeing is the cost potentially falling into the kind of 7 to 10 cent per kilowatt hour range, and some higher ones for new markets. So already we're seeing the industry delivering quite significant cost reductions, you know, this is a relatively thin data set, but with the importance of the market and what's happening in China in terms of developing the supply chains there, which are potentially going to help with projects being developed around the world, as we've seen with PV, we're quite confident that these costs are kind of achievable. And what this means is that actually when we get down to looking at, say, 2010 to 2020 or 2022, these cost reductions are really very significant. What's important is, of course, is that they're now competing head to head with fossil fuels without subsidies, which is critical to the long-term growth of the industry, and of course with meeting the globe's combined goal of meeting the Paris Agreement. So what's going on in terms of the trends and CSP projects, and you'll probably hear more details about this from Christina that I will go into. But of course, we mentioned already the shift to better quality resource locations that allows higher output, so you're amortizing your investment more rapidly. And you can see here on the right-hand side, this real step change where we went from a predominantly European market, North American market, to the right-hand side where we've seen a much more diverse deployment in the Sun Belt, notably in the Middle East and North Africa, South Africa as well. At the same time, we have this body of experienced project developers around the world that have reduced the risk of developing these large, complex civil engineering projects. And that's pushing down margins and contingencies. It's helping with financing costs, etc. And at the same time, that growth is helping to develop larger, more competitive supply chains, so that the components are also coming down. And at the same time, we have the technology improvements that are helping to shift to higher operating temperatures, perhaps with changes to the heat transfer fluids, larger apertures, etc., for the parabolic troughs and so on. So there's a lot going on here. And of course, I think it's important to highlight the fact that the benefits of competitive procurement and really pushing developers to really get the best possible costs. And it's not just the effect of competition, it's the way these procurement items have been structured that allow for lower risks overall in terms of perhaps currency risk or offtake risk. So providing that certainty that lowers the cost of capital, which is so fundamental to driving down the capital intensive cost of electricity from renewables. So what happens to the installed cost reduction? This, I said, we've done some analysis out to 2030. Basically on the right-hand side, you can see we've taken a generic plant configuration that resembles what's been done in Morocco and the Noor plants. And we've looked at the cost reduction potential across the supply chain. And you can see here that for parabolic trough, we're going from around $4,200 a kilowatt down to about $2,900. Solar towers, which are less commercially deployed at this stage, going from around 5,300 to around 3,400. And below that, there's some charts you probably can't read, which also shows that we've looked at this obviously at an individual component level to see how this plays out. Now, that's our benchmark for the OECD, and then obviously, if we're looking at the G20, we need to adjust for the local content pricing. So we've had an exercise to undertake that to look at what may be the relative contribution of local labour, materials, etc., and what are the relative prices between markets. It's a relatively high level analysis, but it then allows us to look at what might happen for each of the G20 countries. And you can see here, each circle is one of the G20 countries. We have the levelized cost of electricity on the y-axis and the DNI on the right-hand side, just to re-emphasize again that as you go across to the right-hand side, and higher DNI does have a significant impact on the cost of electricity. And obviously that's very helpful in terms of the overall deployment of the technology. So in the end, what we'll have, and I don't want for you to look at the detail of this chart, which is the levelized cost of electricity 2018 and 2030 for different G20 countries. Not all G20 countries will be able to deploy CSP given the requirement for a high level of direct normal irradiance, but we've looked at a subset. And the key takeaway here is that basically by 2030, we see no reason why in countries with very good solar resource and competitive cost structures, where you can't see costs in the range of 5, say 8, 9, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And that is again with a relatively conservative cost of capital assumption. If you want to be more aggressive on that, which certainly we've seen some projects are, then it could even be a little bit lower than that. So given that we have a technology which can integrate thermal energy storage and provide a dispatchable technology, we are very optimistic about the role that CSP will be able to play going forward in the Sun Belt in particular, but also elsewhere with high levels of D&I. Moving forward as we're integrating higher shares of variable renewables. So we see CSP as not only a very important technology for the energy transition, but also one that is potentially very competitive. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you found that informative.
Thank you very much, Michael. I loved all your numbers, and there is certainly some food for thought in there, and it's good to see the actual numbers. I really enjoyed the presentation, actually, so thank you.
Our pleasure.
If you can now just take the presentation away, let's just put the stop presentation, and we will allow Christina to do hers. And I've seen some questions have started to come, so keep sending them. We'll do them at the end. And Christina, when you're ready, just share your screen. Actually, to me, it was quite significant that, you know, from 2017 to 2018, we reduced costs faster even than the PV industry. I think this is a good tendency. I hope to see much more of that. If you just put that on a large screen, please, Christina.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. We're ready for you then.
Okay. So, well, thank you for coming. I'm going to, what are you seeing? The slide or the full slide?
I see a slide that says current challenges on CSP industry.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll totally align it with the speech that Michael has explained perfectly. We need to talk about the need of cost reduction in CSP, that is mandatory. Otherwise, it won't be a competitive solutions against other technology. Nur Energy One project has reached the best goal ever achieved for CSP in terms of dollar per kilowatt hour, but this value is still not enough. We need more cost reduction, where a central receiver technology is the technology with largest potential for cost reduction due to the lower megawatt installed, the less lesson learned and implementing, and the more financial constraints due to the lack of confidence. One of the key points is to increase the reliability on CSP technology. Ramp-up period and learning curve are taking longer than expected in CSP plant. Lower plant performances have produced a lack of confidence, and we need to improve this feeling. Many lessons learned must be applied in coming projects, and we need to evolve to a more cost-effective solution. This strategy will lead a lender to be more confident. And as part of the cost-effective solution, we need to work in new development on key component. A critical component as a solar field, molten salt component shall be adapted to new market necessity. And that means to invest in innovation. And also that means to improve, to promote change supplier. That means to obtain higher performances and higher accuracy on this performance, and promote local manufacturing. Finally, we need to enhance CSP capability against other technologies. CSP technology allows efficient and flexible dispatchable strategy with the thermal storage. That means to work in CSP solution with profit increasing due to larger thermal energy storage. The market demand a hybrid solution to achieve better performances, as we will see in the next slide. And in parallel, we have identified the solar heat for industrial processes as a new key marker for CSP. CSP owns a broad range of heat conditions to accommodate any industrial request. If we talk in more detail in this point, we need to talk about innovation. So companies and workers must maintain constant technological surveillance. We must keep updated. We must bet on technology, because we need to remember that technological progress can erode the margin of a product, can eliminate a market product, but also can open up new markets. Abengoa has been working on innovation in key component of CSP technology for more than 15 years, mainly in the area of the solar field, in the solar receiver, and in thermal storage system. Considering that the solar field represents more than 30% of the cost of the project, the reduction and optimization of collector and rheostat is a priority. We work continuously in the design and optimization of new structure. And that's mean to improve in the structure, but also in the collector assembly line based on lean manufacturing processes, in the enhancement of quality control on workshop, for example, using photogrammetry, and we work in the higher quality control on field. So we have developed a new tool for design and optical qualification. If we talk about receiver, the operability of the receiver is another key factor to guarantee the performance. We work on the design optimization in the control configuration of this receiver, in the know-how of the aging process that will affect the durability of this component and also the performance. And we work in new tools to guarantee the control. And finally, to be competitive in the big advantage of the CSP, in the dispatchability, we need to work in thermal storage component. So that means to work in the optimization of the molten salt tank, in the heat exchangers, in the pumps, and in material, validating this component under the thermal behavior that we have in this system, and evaluating the fatigue that this component suffer in the life of the plant. If we see the graph here, we can see how is the investment in R&D in Abengoa. You can see the red line, and how this increase in R&D means an increase in commercial projects. However, this R&D investment is not sustainable for a private company, and it's necessary to improve public funding sources. So we need a stronger commitment by government in order to have relevant advances in innovation and to be faster in the cost reduction for based on innovation in component. Anyway, we have talked about the innovation in component, but there are another key factor that reduce the cost of the CSP. Basically, mainly we need to talk about the higher performance model accuracy. We need to talk about the economy of scale, and we need to talk about PPA. If we talk about performance model, in Abengoa, we have an in-house performance model that guarantees production. This performance model allows us to present, bid, and guarantee energy production. That is very, very, very important. A proprietary performance model allows integration vendor data, making a completely customizable in-house product. Our performance model allows lifetime simulation with a wide range of output. And we use this tool for the optimization process in order to obtain different input for different configuration and optimize the final product to be introduced in the market. If we talk about the economy of scale, this is a really important key factor in order to optimize the cost of the CSP due to the higher size of the project. With this bigger scale, suppliers are able to invest in order to improve their fabrication procedure. Based in our experience in the project, the construction of identical plants simultaneously produce really relevant engineering savings. With this higher scale, it's possible to improve the collaboration with the original equipment manufacturers. So it's important to promote this collaboration agreement with the O&Ms. It's really important to deal with local contractors and to have a really good know-how of local market. Also, Chinese market is essential to lower cost, and we need really good quality procedure for the validation of these new manufacturers. And the last key factor to be discussed in this webinar in terms of the scale and commercial project is the PPA. The PPA extending to 35 years that allows the facility energy production for an extended period beyond 25 years. And that improves the financial model directly. However, if you work with this new time in PPA, we need a design life of equipment for 35 years. And this is a challenge. And we need the confirmation and the guarantee by vendors for this new period. More challenge in the scale, in the economies of scale. And this is the logistic. If we talk about our experience in the project that you know, only for the solar field, you will have more than 30 big trucks arriving at our plant on a daily basis. And you need to plan supervision in the stock area. You need to control very in detail the solar component manufacturing process. And you need and the traffic control had to be dealt with road and transportation authority. So this is a relevant challenge in the construction. And another challenge in the economy of scale is there are many stakeholders in one project working at the same time in the same place. So the project needs to lead with many contractors and many interfaces that are critical to comply with time schedule and plant performance. So companies as Abengoa can facilitate this integration thanks to the full knowledge of the CSP value chain. This is really, really important to guarantee the success of a project with this scale. And finally, to reduce the cost of the CSP or to extend the role of the CSP in the market, we need to talk about hybridization. We need to take into account in the current situation of the market that the energy industry must strictly comply with the applicable regulatory framework. Everybody knows that conventional solutions cannot accommodate such tight regulatory frameworks, keeping the same LCOE. So we need new generation profiles to meet at the minimum cost the final consumer profiles. Those requests are quite different depending on geographies. The new solutions additionally has to fulfill this new PPA for a longer period of time with a very tight structure in terms of generation, with increasing requirement in flexibility, and with a lower or with more extreme requirement in time of response. All this commitment reclaimed new solutions with low LCOE and high flexibility. In terms of cost, the market, as Michael has explained perfectly, has reduced the cost of the main component for technology as CSP, PV, for batteries, and for molten salt. In terms of flexibility, a certain proportion of CSP with a high storage capacity allows a maximum penetration of renewable at more than acceptable cost and with less curtailment. So new hybrid plant that combine the low cost of renewable as PV or wind with batteries for fast response and with CSP, with storage for long dispatchability is one of the most requested products for energy market. However, to provide an accurate and reliable hybrid solution is required a theoretical model able to define an appropriate design at a lower cost. Abengoa has its own technology to develop a specific theoretical model to provide innovative, credible, and accurate solution for any generation profile for any specific industry. Here we can see the hybrid energy solution currently provided by CSP technology. In the left side, we can see the new hybrid smart solar plant that satisfies a given generation profile, both during the day and at night. The energy generated during the day comes from a highly competitive cost, a photovoltaic field or wind field, while at night, when demand peaks happen and electricity prices are highest, the solar thermal plant with the storage capacity goes into operation. So these are very flexible and disposable plant adapted to the new energy demand, and that reduce the cost of operation and maintenance. In the right side, we have an example of the use of molten salt storage with electrical heater and molten salt steam generator that can give a new life to fossil fuel power plant, which otherwise will be dismantled as a strategic reserve. So in the case of a strategic reserve, coal-fired plant, the system can serve as storage, but also can accelerate the entrance in service of the full system by starting the steam cycle on the base of the molten salt steam generator, while the slower coal boiler reach its operation temperature. So this is two examples of the hybrid solution provided by the CSP. And this is the last slide where we have tried to summarize which are the main development in terms of cost reduction and cost competitive of the CSP technology. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christina. It was really good. You went through all of the points, so I appreciate it. If you can now take the presentation of the screen. And we're having a few difficulties. It seems like Michael, unfortunately, is dropping off at times, but we have some questions for you. So we'll start with the questions for you until hopefully he can make it back. And let's see, for example, we have one here that says, Dear Christina, how much public funding do you deem necessary and which benefit would it be quantitatively achieved by this? And Sasha, I think, is referring to when you talked about R&D and you said that R&D is actually not possible to be done by companies, that, they requires public funding. Here is what he's asking you, how much is necessary and how, would you spend it and how would you benefit from it? So what is your thinking? Bit of a difficult one.
Yes, this is a complicated question. I can answer you in terms of general rules. It's very important to work at different TRL. It's mandatory. So if you see the different R&D strategy defined by different organizations, for the Sunshot in the United States, for Age 2020 in Europe, basically everybody is focused in low TRL solutions that demand money for or funding to be in the market in 10 years. Our main concern is different in the industry. We need funding to be competitive now and to be reliable now and to be more and to reduce the cost now. And this is a handicap that we have tried to explain in order to obtain funding to enhance the current problem detected in the commercial plant. And at this moment, if you talk about problem in commercial plant, everybody say, no, this is engineering. This is not R&D. And in our experience, I think we need now more funding to optimize certain component thanks with certain problem detected thanks to the lesson learned, and to reduce the current cost of the current technology in order to be or to obtain the same cost reduction than PV. So in terms of funding, we are reclaiming more funding for high TRL projects from 6 to 9. So that means more funding for projects that have to be in the market in 2-3 years as commercial solution. I don't know.
Hopefully that answers the question, yes. I have some more, so don't worry, Christina. Is Abengoa also involved in high temperature CSP temperatures of more than 800 degrees Celsius for storage? Which technologies can enable to drive higher temperatures and thus higher efficiency power cycles? Do you think this can help reduction of LCOE?
Abengoa, in terms of cost reduction in near term, the strategy that we are following is the strategy that I have shown in the presentation. But of course, as a technology company, we have different development for mid-term and for long-term. So that means we are currently working in supercritical CO2 cycle. We have Age 2020 project where we are working in this new cycle in order to increase the efficiency of the power plant, and we are working with new heat transfer fluid in order to optimize the range of temperature in this new CSP plant. Additionally, we have also several projects at demo scale for solar fuels and for industrial heat, working at temperature higher than 900 degrees. Because for mid and long term, yes, process heat, industrial processes, and solar fuel is a target for us. This is the difference. This speech is only for near term. And of course, if you want to be in the market in the next year, you need development in mid and long term, working with this temperature rates.
Perfect, thank you. That was a good answer. Do we have a reliable standard tool for CSP design today? And it says similar to PVC, so WindPro or OpenWind.
Yes, yes. An example of this is Kina project. Kina project, you know that usually you have 2 years to fulfill the warranty model. And we have reached this warranty model in a period very lower than expected. So, and the reason of this is our performance model tool has a really, really high accuracy. So it's a totally reliable tool for us. Also, the assembly processes and workshop for our solar field is a totally reliable tool for us. And an example of this, again, is our larger aperture collector that has reduced significantly the cost of the parabolic trough plant in our portfolio and in the world, basically.
So, yes. So just to make sure I understand, this is a proprietary tool, right, that you have in Abengoa?
Yes.
And there is no sort of standard tools for the industry outside? It's like each has their own?
No, it's a proprietary tool and each one has their specific tool, and this is the key.
So Osvaldo, there you go. You need to find someone who has a good tool to help you. Does your financial model balance capex with long-term performance?
I don't know.
The question is from Fred Morse. It says, how does your financial model balance capex or capex with long-term performance? So how do you make sure that you're investing enough that the plant lasts and you're just not focusing on... It's not an easy answer.
It's not an easy answer. It's not an easy answer to be discussed here. But Fred, please, if you hear me, we can discuss more in detail in the near future, in order to see how is the expected capex for a long period. At this moment, capex is reducing, but the longer PPA is key, but hybridization is the most important factor to reduce the capex of the current commercial plant.
I mean, typically, you know, any plants will have like a reserve fund, you know, every year that is kept. So, you know, to make sure there is predictive O&M and whatnot, to make sure, you know, that plant continues to have work in the future. But that's how usually the financial models are accounted for. But that's the only thing I can think about, although I'm sure, you know, that there is more to it than that. All right, so just a couple more questions, and unfortunately, we don't seem to be able to get Michael back. So we'll see. We'll answer these 2-3 questions that we have left, and then if we get Michael back, we'll ask him a few more, and if not, you know, we'll say goodbye. Giuseppe is asking here, can you please share some economics of these hybrid plants? So how do the economics work for these hybrid plants? He left it quite open for you.
No, no, I cannot show cost for this hybrid plant because depend on many factors. So I cannot give you a specific cost for this hybrid plant.
I'm going to let Giuseppe and you speak directly about this also offline. Yeah. Sounds to me like, okay. So one last question. It's a question here I saw. Let me see if I can find it. It was about industrial heat. Here it is. What would be the role of CSP technology to replace heat supply in the industrial sector, mainly in the markets that do not have access to natural gas? So this is, again, an open question, but, and someone else asks here about desalination. So perhaps, you know, you want to also include that in there.
The CSP has or will have a relevant role in industrial heat, sure. The question is which technology, because depending on the range of temperature, you will have different options. So if you are working with low temperature, in that case, the solution is flat collector. If you work in the range from 100 to 200 degrees, So sure, the personnel will be a CSP leader solution in this range of temperature, or a small aperture collector. If we talk in the range from 250 to 350 is chemical sector or thermal, high thermal sector, parabolic trough collector with direct steam generation or with sun specific thermal oil will be also the leader. And at higher temperature, this is where we are working with a specific development, working with solid particles for high temperature. So the CSP will be the leader in the different range with different solutions, but we need to improve the capability for storage. And the storage depend on the range on temperature. You can work with a steam accumulator at low temperature. You can work with molten salt. You can work with solid silos, and you will need to work more in detail, or we need to have advanced in phase change material if you need in your industry constant temperature. So the CSP will be there, and we know that, and all CSP player knows that.
So, but it's very wide, right? And there's so many options. Everyone needs to study differently, and that is the complication. There is no ready-made solutions, I suppose. Yes. Okay, last question, 2 parts, because I'm combining 2. One is asking you about concrete components to be optimized, and another question is saying, you said China is important for reducing costs. Could you please elaborate on that, and what exactly in the value chain you can see the most potential? So the 2 questions are very related. One is asking you about a specific component. One is asking you about China and how in the supply chain it is, which is kind of like hinting at the same thing. So
when you mention component, you said concrete component?
Concrete meaning like a specific component.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking in concrete.
Yeah, no. Specific components.
At this moment, if we talk about Chinese component, we are talking about everything. It's raw material for structure, or even hydraulic mechanism for the solar field. And they are offering everything. You need to validate this product. You need to validate with a really, with a relevant quality control system, the quality of this product. But if you ask me about which are the product that the Chinese market can offer you, everything.
Except for salts, right? No natural salts.
No mining salts. No mining salts.
About the thermofluids either, but okay, but that's it. Other than that, they can offer everything, and I suppose they're very key to that cost reduction in the components. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we expect big things, China, if you're listening. Those costs need to keep coming down. Okay, Cristina, so thank you very much for your help. I am really sorry that we lost Michael. They appeared to have internet problems in their office, so this is why he tried to connect back up, but he dropped off. However, I just want to say thanks to everyone that was there, who attended this session, and I hope to see you in the next one. And before I leave, I'd just like to thank our sponsor once again, which is SQM Thermosolar Salts. Without them, this webinar and others wouldn't be possible. So we highly appreciate their support to get these things done, because it's important, that we all learn about the status of the technology. So thank you very much to the speakers. Michael is no longer with us at the moment, and Cristina, thank you very much. And thank you very much, SQM, for supporting our work. And see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.